Ethan Edwards. I don't know what we're doing here, but here we are.
Yeah, we're here. We're injured and we're bored.
That's really what it is. Yeah, it's like what's today? Monday. It's Monday afternoon on a gorgeous day in New Hampshire, and I would maybe be out climbing, but I'm not because I'm injured, but not nearly as injured as you.
Yes, this is true. Unfortunately, I had a pretty bad break at the end of the ski season.
Was it literally a break, or was it? Then what happened to you? Who hurt you, Ethan?
Yeah, this is why climbers shouldn't go skiing.
I mean, I could have told you that.
Yeah, so I was, I had a great winter this year. I moved back to Bozeman, Montana, and it was an all-time ski season. So, I went full into dirtbag skier mode, which means go all the time. And I, unfortunately, last day of the year, nothing cool, didn't fall. I just hit something hard under the snow, and I hurt my cartilage. So your femur has smooth cartilage on it, and you can imagine I put a little hole in the middle of that cartilage with a little flap, so it was getting stuck in my knee, and they removed it. When they removed it, they broke the bone there to make it so it will heal back. Stem cells will come in there. It will form a little clot. But then once they do that, you can't walk on it for 6 weeks. And you're stuck in a machine all day, having it move your leg to make it so it promotes growth of that cartilage.
When you were explaining that, I had that like feeling in your chest. You know how you get that feeling in your chest where it's just like, ugh.
Yeah.
Did it hurt? Like it hurt. Was it an event when it happened and then it hurt after?
It was one of those things because I've hurt this knee before, so I've been through it. It was one of those things I knew almost immediately that there was something wrong and that it wasn't going to be most likely I walk it off, or like everyone was like, oh, just do this, follow this knees over toe guy on Instagram. I'm like, no, that's not going to fix it.
Instagram MD.
Yeah.
That's not going to cut it.
Yeah. And so, yep, I had surgery. Let's see, I'm in 1 week, a little bit more than 1 week. Next Wednesday, I can start putting weight on that leg. And it should be a quick healing, or like from there, because it's a small piece, like the size of a Tic Tac, you can imagine. And so everything else in the knee looked really good in the point of view of the doctor. And I'll get to probe him a little more, but unfortunately it kind of ruined my spring and summer climbing. But I'm looking forward to fall and winter. So.
Well, you live in Bozeman now, so there's not really much for rock climbing around you.
No chassis, no rock. There's no people either. It's kind of nice.
Yeah. Well, I've been following your injury progression on Instagram, and you're doing are you doing finger workouts on your wall, like with your leg in a sling or something? Like what's happening there?
Yeah. So of course I reached out to who I think is the best kind of climbing PT guy, strength coach in the industry, Tyler Nelson at C4HP. And he just basically has set me up with a way to stay strong, stay fit, but with sitting in a chair. So I just sit down, I sit in a chair, and then I'm doing, strength stuff. So I'm doing isolating my finger flexors at a 90-degree angle, and then trying to think of just like, doing a curl with your bicep, but with my fingers. And so I'm working on increasing that strength. But then also we did some tests to get my critical force numbers. So a number that you can kind of pull that number for a certain number of sets. And then I'm using that number and I'm doing like aerobic capacity stuff. And these are some of the most grueling workouts. I actually told him, I was like, I need something different because I dread going out there for the hour and sitting there and kind of torturing myself. So I've actually this week switched to using some BFR cuffs. So using BFR to just be able to not do that much. I can sit out there for 15 minutes, but it feels like I just went up a huge sport climbing route and I can stay in shape. So
what's BFR?
Blood flow restriction. So I wear these cuffs on my biceps, and it restricts the blood flow. And so then I can do minimal amount of work, not overload my body. But if my body thinks that I just went off and, climbed a huge sport climb on Waimea and got really pumped, but I really was just sitting in a chair. And so I'm kind of tricking.
I bet it makes your arms look super ripped.
Oh, yeah. Well, they already are. No.
Oh, well, yeah. Even more ripped if that's possible.
But yeah, you get really all the veins, pop out.
You should take pictures for Instagram. Like, this is my workout. This is what's been happening.
Yeah, but yeah, Tyler's great, and he's been, he's kind of also, I'm using him as a second opinion with the PT that I'm seeing for my knee. So he's going to help me just get back as quick as possible.
How are you doing mentally / emotionally with this?
It was kind of a mental game in the beginning because I went into the surgery not knowing. And so I had an outcome of I could walk out of the surgery, and I had very little swelling and no bruising. So I was like, and he said on the MRI, it looked pretty minor. But once he goes in there, that's the different story. So it was either I walk out or I'm crutching out and I'm in this machine. And so before going into it, I had an optimistic mindset. It's the easier case. I'm walking out. I'm going to be back on my project in 6 weeks, this delusional mindset. But then once I found out that it was pretty tough, and I was definitely in a bad spot for a little bit, but luckily with a pretty amazing support group, my wife has now taken care of 3 children, the dog, me, and my daughter.
And that's a new thing, or if it's anything like my family dynamic,
No, it's gotten tougher for her. But yeah, I just try. I'm an optimistic guy. I'm pretty psyched. So I just kind of sat there. I was like, all right, well, my shoulder's been bugging me. I got this knee issue. I want to get my hands and upper body strong. So I just kind of took it as a moment. All right, I got a 6-week training block where I have to focus on rehabbing my shoulder and getting my arms and my upper body as strong as possible.
I got to say your Instagram game is on point, because I can set a clock by it. I'll post something and you'll respond. You'll be like the first to respond. You respond to everything. And I was talking to somebody else and they're like, who's this Ethan Edwards? I'm like, don't worry, he's injured. Like he's on Instagram all the time, responding to so many things. Yeah, on point. 514 Insta right now.
I'm sitting in that machine for most of the day, and I have a cooling thing.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it's a pretty rough spot, but I'm trying to be as optimistic as possible. And I'm going to the gym, so I'm using like cable machines, so I can just sit down at a cable machine and do bench press, do shoulders, do everything. And then I'm playing poker sometimes because I like to play poker. So I go. There's a live game every Tuesday night. I go just to keep my mind and sharp. And
see, that's scary to me. Like any sort of like card games or gambling or anything, like so scary. That freaks me out.
It is. Luckily, this is it's a $40 game, so it's like a tournament. It's really competitive, so it's more of like a mind, battle. Most of the time you lose, and it's kind of like bouldering. You fall a lot, and then maybe one time you can send.
There is like this part of, I don't know, if I think of like a part of my life, there's work, there's family, and then there's other. Something has to occupy other. It can either be climbing, it can be running, it can be cycling, it could be poker for you, but something has to occupy that. And Kate always tells me, she's like, you're going to have to find a thing to do that isn't physical at some point. And I'm like, I'm not going to collect stamps. Like, I don't know what is the thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, keep your mind sharp and maybe it's pool or darts or, I was always kind of competitive but at the same time, like by myself, not in a team sport. So stuff like that, like I don't know, ping pong is kind of, you still have to be somewhat physical, but maybe it's,
I think they call it table tennis. If you're really serious.
Or what's the new sport now? It's paddle,
pickleball. Yeah.
You can get into that.
I'm going to rebrand this podcast as a pickleball podcast.
Well, you're going to have to find, now you yourself have some time with your recent little injury.
Yeah. And it's not nearly what yours is. Like yours was like legit knee surgery. I just like stupidly trundled a block onto my leg and got like a pretty significant puncture wound on my shin. And like I stayed out the rest of the day, but then Kate saw, I came home and showed it to her and she's like, you have to go to the ER right now. So like I went to the ER and I got 2 stitches. I mean, it's like, I really hurt my pinky when I was in high school. Like I got it caught in a trailer hitch and almost ripped it off. And I had 17 stitches in my pinky. So like I'm not a stranger to stitches, but these two stitches were like 10 out of 10 pain.
Oh yeah.
Because it's right on your shin. Like there's like skin and bone. And now there's skin and bone and two
Oh
stitches.
my
And it's
goodness.
like and it's been so painful. Like the cure is worse than the disease at this point. Like after I got it quote fixed, it's like hurts so much more than when I was ignoring it before, which is like, I mean, that's a good reminder. Just ignore things, Jay, when there's a problem. Like reinforce
Which leg is it?
my right
Your
leg.
right leg.
Yeah. So I've just been hobbling around and like the stitches come out in 10 days. Like it's a flesh wound. Like I'm making a big deal out of a like 2 stitches flesh wound, but it's hurts so bad.
Sometimes those small ones are the worst, and that's on your shin. And
Kate said she looked at it, she could have put her finger into it. It was that big and deep.
yeah, I hurt my finger. If you see, I have two nails. That's
Oh, whoa,
that's a
weird.
small. It was such a small little injury. That was one of the worst injuries I've ever had. It was like hurting your tip of your finger. Kind of same thing. It's like really sensitive. Your shins are so sensitive.
Yeah, so this is like our pity party.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, so I had my first workout today where I like hobbled over to the hangboard and was like doing pull-ups, but I declined to do the hangboard workout because I'm on this like 10 times stronger than ibuprofen anti-inflammatory. But I'm like, I don't want to mask any finger issues I might have. So like just leave the fingers alone
you
for
just do pull
this.
ups. I saw you had a pull, and you kind of.
I've been walking around with a hiking pole. It's so sad, dude. Like it's just like these two, like this tiny little puncture wound. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't do
What's
anything.
actually funny with my knee is that I'm not allowed to take any anti-inflammatories.
Oh,
So they were like really crucial. I can't take ibuprofen, can't take Aleve, any of these things because they want me to have a strong anti-inflammatory response. Or
oh, so they
they
want
want
it
me to
to
have
like get,
an inflammatory response.
oh, wow, that's weird. Because usually you think you're like trying to get rid of that all the time.
Yeah, because they want my stem cells and everything to do their job. You don't want to repress any of that, I guess.
Sure. So, have you been keeping up with like what's going on in the climbing world while you've been like out of it?
That's all I have. I mean, I've been watching the Mellow. There's like a whole series of Mellow videos, which is actually good timing. Also, I'm just binge watching any series possible. I found there was a climbing, on HBO. There's a Emily Harrington and Adrian Bollinger climb, that multi-pitch out in Kyrgyzstan. So I watched that. I watched like the 100-foot wave, which is a sweet documentary there. Watching that guy Hamish sending all the boulders and the Mellow series. I don't know if you've seen that at all. There's like a
I'm
competition.
not sure.
Yeah, there's $20,000 up for grab for like these Mellow videos. So everyone's posting them, and there's like kind of voting that's going on. Yeah, so just plugged into the Instagram, and now the news. Actually, I never watched the news, and I'm watching the news because there's a lot of stuff going on.
Have you reached out to your senators in Montana about the potential public land sell-off?
I have, and they responded, and they respond really quick. So they obviously have a nice draft ready.
I mean, like Montana gets 2 senators, so does California. Like the constituency for Montana's senators is like 50 each, right?
And yeah, they sent me back really quick. And but what I noticed is Montana, we're not even in it. I'm like, why?
Oh, you're
Why
not?
did we get left out? Like, why don't they want to sell our land?
It's because of the series Yellowstone, right? Like you already took care of that in the Yellowstone series.
Or they're like, yeah, it's too chossy, and the land
Nobody
there
wants it.
sucks.
I mean, let's be honest. Like everybody wants Wyoming, nobody really wants Montana.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's why you move there, right? So
Yeah, I reached out to the Wyoming senators. I just left voicemails. Actually, I talked to one of the underlings who answered for, I forget which senator, but I was like, "Are you getting a lot of these calls?" He's like, "You have no idea." Like it's like the phones are
well,
ringing off the hook. So, I mean, I think it's pretty roundly rejected by almost everyone.
so
This
let's
concept.
hope that it doesn't pass.
Yeah, so if you're listening in any of these places out west, like definitely call your senators and tell them that you do not support Mike Lee's proposed. It's not even an amendment. It's like wrapped into some budget reconciliation bill or something. So like his proposal to sell off public lands to create affordable housing, which doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense. Although I gotta say, if like Jenny Lake and the Tetons is like on the docket for like affordable housing, I could take that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at it, none of the land looks like, there's lots of these areas that you're like, how are they going to build on that? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I don't think it's like those maps. Like I think those are just like that's just land that could potentially be put into this bucket. But I mean, the worst case scenario would be all that land would go away, which is unthinkable. I mean, it's our birthright to use this land. Like this land is our land, Ethan.
We're not going to sing on here. I'm not a singer.
I set you up for it. I teed it up. It was like a volleyball set. Like I just like set it up ready for you to spike it over the net, and you just flubbed it.
This is how you lose lots of First Ascent listeners, because you have me singing.
Well, you've been trying to lobby me to talk about this topic that I've been a little evasive about because, to be honest, I don't really care. But since you're on,
Ooh.
What's the deal with that Crow Hill route?
Ooh, yeah. I guess we have some. I think the First Ascent Nation is going to really like this because we have an update. The route has now had I think a second and a third ascent. Mark Chury, who's the guy who got me to bolt it, but this is the Tim Kemple Jr. kind of forgotten route that we retro bolted, and Mark was able to do it. I think it's one of the best, probably trad sport mixed lines in New England, and I think it deserves a lot of these not young, old climbers to go check it out. But yeah, he was able to send it, and then another local guy who's a little bit older went and did it too. And I think there's a few other people probably hopefully trying it. But it is an amazing climb. If anyone knows Crow Hill, it climbs Crow Magnum for almost its entirety. And as soon as Crow Magnum traverses left and kind of gets wonky and kind of climbs this rock, you pass a piton and do this traverse. As soon as you get there, instead of going left, you climb this really unique boulder problem, all bolted, and it's probably about a 20-foot long boulder problem with 3 cruxes in it. Maybe like a V5 intro that's kind of techy to get your feet up. And then you have to do a hard dead point to a decent hold and then a hard clip. And then once you clip, you have to do another kind of hard sequence to get to some decent holds. And then it goes back to all gear for the finish. And it's probably feels like 5:11-ish finish climbing, maybe a little bit easier. But when you're up there, it's probably going to feel pretty real deal because you have to still place some gear. And then it tops out the cliff. And so, it tops out this pretty iconic cliff that has Jane, which is a Henry Barber route that climbs the whole cliff. You got Dune that's to the left of that, another amazing climb. And then you have now this one, Doesn't Matter. And now I feel it's a really complete wall with, a pretty amazing climb.
You definitely took the bull by the horns and was like, I'm just going to retro bolt this thing or rebolt it. Like, what did you do?
Yeah, so it's kind of a funny story because John Haggerty actually, a year before I went out there, had messaged me. He said, "Hey, you should go out there and do this." And I think I didn't even respond to the text. It was kind of a bad friend. I was just like, I just didn't ignore it. And then I'd been going to Crow Hill and was psyched on it because it's so close to my house in Wilmington when I was living there. And I saw someone was like, there's a mountain project thread. This guy wants to rebolt it. You should go help. And so I chimed in, and it was this guy, Mark Chury. And he goes there. He's a local, he's climbed all the routes there. And he wants a 5:13, he wants something harder for him to do. He's done all the other ones. And he doesn't know how to bolt it. So he said, "Hey, do you want to come do it?" And we went through, asked the WMCC, talked to the first ascensionists, made sure everyone was on board. And then, we kind of got an okay. It was like, yeah, and so I just said, all right, I'm psyched. Let's go. I've never retrobolted something. And, we looked up how to remove rivets, and we wanted to use the hole for the rivet if we could to rebolt it. And, we went up there. I had my crowbar and my gear for cleaning routes, and
Your Crow Hill
my
bar?
Crow Hill bar. And actually, the rivets were impressive to get out. They are the depth of your pinky nail into the rock. I ended up getting most of them. Mark was trying, and he was struggling. And not that he's not strong or anything, but I just gave it brute force, started going nuts. I hitting getting my knuckles bloodied, and I eventually, got them all out. And I saved them. I actually have them. They're kind of a cool little relic. And we left one in that has an old bolt on it. And if people are listening to this, you go out there, don't clip it. Like, you don't need it. There's a cam. You can place a cam. But of course, John Haggerty clipped it. And I think he might have whipped on it. And it stayed.
Well, what kind of rivets were they? Were they button heads, or did they have a nut on the head with threads?
Some of them had nuts. Some of them are button heads.
Which ones were harder to get out, the button heads or the threaded ones?
They were about the same. I mean, it was hard. Like, I actually, once I did that, I was like, wow, that gives me, I already knew how hard it was to put a bolt in and remove a bolt. And then I saw how hard it was to get this little rivet out that was from they're the original ones. Like, they were rusted, and actually, they were popping out and going onto the ground. And I searched the ground until I found them all.
That's great.
Kind of its own fun part. But yeah, so where I put the bolts, I was able to reuse the holes except for one. Yeah, we left it out, and I know if you went, you would have been like, dude, you got to add another bolt. And then John Haggerty climbed on it. He was like, you got to add another bolt. We really just didn't want to. We were like, oh, you could put a long runner on the piton, and then you have the piton. You do the sequence. If you do it on, if you've rehearsed it, you'll be fine. But if you're going for the onsite, you're going to be pretty spooked, and there's like this little run out. And it's kind of one of those moves. It's kind of a new school move where it's all like balancing and kind of coordination. Like, until you figure out the body position and how to get up on the holds, it feels impossible. But then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I just did that without, really trying. And so I ended up putting one bolt in to make that sequence more manageable.
That's a line to cross, though, because there is a difference between, you cross the rebolting / retrobolting line. So like, you were rebolting using 1-for-1 in the historic way it was done. And then to add that other bolt, now you're doing something else. And I'm not saying it's wrong, but did you get any criticism for that?
I don't think we have yet. And the question is, maybe someone could go out there and chop these. I put glue in bolts in, and thanks to your mentorship, I've learned how to use them and put them in. And I did my best to make them as clean as I could. And they really don't pop out. Like, they're relatively hard to see. They're those, that tarnished ones, and they kind of blend in.
The wave bolts with the sort of like the matte finish kind of.
Yeah. And they kind of blend in, and, the feeling was there, and Mark really didn't want us to put that one in. And he was pretty adamant. Like, we wanted to be bold, like still have a little boldness, but I was like, I want people to climb this and have fun. And if someone wants to try to onsite it and go up, like, they should have the ability to be able to clip that one and not be freaked out falling on a piton that's just kind of old and manky. And already people climb Cro-Magnon and clip that piton, and that's kind of their last piece. And it's kind of a hard mantle on that one, that you're kind of traversing far away. Like, I've never fallen on that, but it would be a little scary.
Crow Hill has seen some sort of ethical stuff, though, too, hasn't it? Where I'm remembering, wasn't Dune, like the super classic 12 plus, wasn't that bolted and then chopped, and bolted and then chopped? And maybe what's the state of it now? Yeah,
that has bolts, but it's also still pretty bold. There's still gear placements. There's some thin placements in between two sets of the it's kind of like after you do this hard boulder problem crux, there's then this section that's really hard and tricky, but you have to place gear on it, and then you get back to some bolts. And yeah, I think that climb, it had all these issues, but I think now someone, unfortunately, I think died at Crow Hill. So I think now people are really like, all right, let's put some good anchors in. So there's anchors on Cro-Magnon now. I don't think there were before. There's a nice set of anchors now on Doesn't Matter. There's a nice set of anchors on Dune, and then Jane, and there's this 5.9 to the right of that now have all nice fixed anchors. I think these are things that more people are going there. These things should be safe, but it needs to. There is that line, and so people saw me bolting, and they
Hmm.
asked. And they were old, some older gentlemen, and I explained, and they were, I think they were relatively psyched. And then the coolest part is the last day I put that last bolt in, and I'm up there, and Ryan Loisel, fan of the pod, Real Stoneholds, shout out to them. He's down at the bottom, and he yells up, "Hey, Steve's here. Can you hurry up?" And I thought he was joking. And me and Ryan had actually met Steve Arsenault the year before at Cathedral, and it's Steve Arsenault, the first ascensionist of Cro-Mag, and he's there with his whole family, his son and his grandkid. And I'm like, then I see it, I'm like, oh, I better hurry. So I get, come down. And I kind of gave him a hard time because there was a funny story. I told his family, and they kind of hassled him. And the kid was like, "Hey, pops, is this the route that that you did first?" And it was a cool kind of whole circle. But Steve was psyched on it, and so that was a
Cool.
cool thing to see Steve be like, "Oh, that's psyched. I'm psyched that you're bolting that now. More people." What he said is, more people are going to come here and enjoy these routes. So that was kind of a full circle for the whole process to have him show up. One of the guys that found that crag and put up those climbs, to be psyched on it. And then I think he even tried to climb it, and his son was falling on it and having fun. And so, yeah.
It's so great that like history in climbing is still pretty short, right? Like, so we can still be sharing the crag with some of these pioneers, and I think it's pretty cool that climbing has that lineage, right?
Yeah, it's pretty special. I mean, it's like, you're going out and you're playing basketball with like Michael Jordan,
Yeah.
or at least for us, it's
I
fun.
think I think like he's probably not in shape, right? Michael Jordan. Like we could take him.
Oh yeah, easy.
Well, I was thinking about Crow Hill. Like I started this whole conversation by saying I don't really care because it's in Massachusetts and I don't climb that down there. But like now I think I'm starting to care because so if you think of like the areas that are developed in New England, there are certain like radiuses, like the radius around Rumney is like Rumney style, right? So there's the Rumney style, there's like the Merriam Wood stuff, the Waterville stuff, like there's some stuff kind of south of Rumney, like it's all kind of bolted in a style. And there's another radius which is around Connecticut, which is the Ken Nichols style. And I feel like if we're going to put Farley in with the Rumney style, then like Crow Hill is kind of like the Venn diagram of like the Ken Nichols influence as well as the Rumney influence, and maybe that's true also for Farley, but like it's sort of a confluence of like two very different styles. And like I should sort of explain, like everybody knows the Rumney style, which is like well bolted, easy, easy to lead, user friendly routes, but the old school like Connecticut Ken Nichols style was like no bolts under any circumstance. I'm going to chop every bolt I see, which, those two styles are completely at loggerheads.
No, yeah, I think you should care, and I think everyone on this pod who's in New England, if they haven't gone, they should. And there are these climbs that like they're kind of intimidating, and you go there and you're like, the first time I went there, I was like, oh, I'm gonna do Cro-Mag first go, and then I was like, actually, maybe I'll wait, I'll save that next time. Like I'll save that for next one. And then like same thing with Jane. At the time, I think it was the hardest climb in the country or the world, and it's a Henry Barber first ascent, so you're kind of like you get to touch the rock where he's climbed and touch that history, which I think is really cool.
Do you think that the first ascensionist has any ownership of the route after he or she does it?
No, absolutely not. I think they
Well,
have.
but you do, because you asked Tim about whether you could rebolt his route, so you clearly think that on some level.
Well, I guess I didn't
This
ask.
is like a gotcha question. I totally like walked you into this thicket.
No, yeah, no. I mean, and to be all like in the truth, I wasn't the one that asked him. Someone else did, and we just got the A-OK. But and I wanted, and I was kind of pressuring that we should, and let's make sure everyone's is all right with it, because more of it, it's more of the community thing. So I wanted to get his okay, because I don't want someone to be pissed off and come find me, or and find me at some other crag. Oh, you're that guy who ruined my route. no one climbed it after me, and that was the way I wanted it. But
Well, yeah, you say that in a flip way, but like I think there's that attitude that's out there. Like I climbed in a certain style, and if you can't climb it in that style, then you shouldn't climb it. There are plenty other routes to climb. Like I feel like that maybe this is my personal perspective on this, but I feel like that style is a detriment to the continuation of rock climbing.
yeah, no, I think, and I mean, I agree, right? There should be some climbs that are like mentally really challenging, but this one, right? It was on these rivets, and in the end, they probably it was sewed up because there's 8 of them in this section of 25 feet. And some of that history, I actually then after it got sent, I reached out to Tim and just was like, I want to learn more, and I had heard rumors that maybe he didn't do it. And I
Yeah,
was hearing from reputable people that were around that time were like, no, no, no. And he said he did it. And I trust that, if he's going to say
sure.
that he still's done it, then I believe him. But, it'd be cool to see like how exactly did he do it? Did he have all 8 of them with a nut fixed on it and then a draw? And was it kind of sewed up? And then, and so like
Oh, they
this,
didn't even have hangers on them. You
no,
had to
no, there's
just put.
just, yeah, he must
Oh,
have used a nut and fastened it and then put a draw. But like, in this sense, that one, it just seems like it needs to have proper modern protection. But like, there's that climb absolute that's below it. No one's going to touch that. And I think that thing should stay for some other guy who wants to come and do something really hard. Or, for instance, Jane, no one's going to come, and that one has a really tricky crux. And, if it was maybe somewhere else, maybe someone would put a bolt there, but no one's going to touch that one.
I think that, and I've been critical of North Conway for this reason, but I think that I might be moderating on my position, but I think social standing matters when we're making these decisions, right? So, like the fact that you did your homework, you were thoughtful about it. I don't know, you weren't arrogant about it. You were, deferential about it. And you did it, and you did it in the best way you could. Like, and you are like a legit long time member of the community who, cares about the community. So, like, you had the social capital to do it. Whereas if somebody's just like some young kid with a drill is just like, just gonna go do that. Like, I think even if the outcome is the same, it feels like a different thing.
Thanks. I think it was a fun, process. I had the time, and yeah, I think if everyone was saying no, don't do it, I was going to go out there. People were pressuring me like, oh, just go do it, and I wanted to make sure we knew how to even take out the rivets. We tried to, read as much about that. I was like reading on the way, driving there, watching videos, like the whole 2 days before. I think I was messaging you, hey, do you know how to do this? And then you sent me mountain project stuff, and then I found someone else, and they gave me stuff. So we just wanted to make sure, yeah, it's there now for anyone to go now do. And I think it's really cool to see that 2 people that I know have done it, and there maybe are more now. And so this thing's getting enjoyed, and they even did it in a way that when we were trying it, because I was getting really close, I one hung it a few times. And, I was trying it this one way, and that might work for me, but he ended up doing it a total different way. And so there's many different ways to kind of do it. And then I think there could even be a cooler thing. There could be a 514 there on this wall. So you climb Dune, and it's through all of its cruxes, and then there's a traverse into the crux of this one. And it's
Oh,
not that,
wow.
I think we have to add a bolt, or maybe there's gear there. I haven't really done all the inspection, but it could be, hard crux of Dune, which I think is almost 513, into this crux of this one that's a little harder. And so maybe it's not 514, but
What is the rating of what's it called? Nothing matters. Doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter. It gets 13A, and I think that's a really solid, that will stand the
Yeah.
test of time. Yeah, because you climb that 10 plus, and then you get an all right rest, and then you fire into all that hard climbing, and there's really no rest once you start that.
Do you feel like you want to do that to modernize other routes now that you've done that for doesn't matter?
No, I think this was just a really particular case where everything fell. If something like this happened again, like, for instance, there's a climb that I'm trying to finish out in this area near me, Maiden Rocks, that my friend Kyler had started, and I'm going to take that over and do that. But modernizing something, you know, if it was the right case and like this, where everything fell in line, where it was like kind of the universe, people were telling me to do it, and then I was going there already every day, or every other day, and it just worked out. So I really like this one because of the history, and then now it's actually like I'm coming back this fall, and one of my goals is to try to get, we'll see with my knee where it's at and how I'm climbing late this fall. But, I definitely want to go down there a few days, even if I'm not in shape to do it. I'll reclimb the other ones. There's a bunch of climbs I haven't done. There's a lot. And I think you should get down there, because I think, it's a far drive, and it will make, but I know
I mean, I'm so like, let me get this straight. Like, I'm driving out of the White Mountains down into the megalopolis that is the Boston area. Why?
Well, you'd want to do it. The season will be when it's too cold for you up there. And I mean, I think, and I might be wrong, but I think like people like Andy Kassler and Ryan Hayes from Northern Vertical, these are guys that when I post stuff on it, they're like, oh, I love that place. So, these are, names that are up in the North Conway and in the Rumney area, and their names are down on Sens down there. So I think we're just waiting for the Jay Knower.
Well, if I could get like perfect beta from you when I'm down there, maybe I'll consider it.
Easy. And I've been telling like Frankie, he should go down there.
Yeah, for sure.
He would love these ones, especially Dune, and Doesn't Matter. I mean, gear, hard climbing, some bolts, really good rock. It's as good as Farley, if not better, I think.
There's a real selflessness to rebolting routes where, I mean, if I'm being really honest, like one of the benefits of first ascents is like, it's a first ascent. You can put your name in the guidebook, like you can name it and you get all that, like that personal accolade. But like to rebolt a route that was just old or screwed up or like wrong in some way, and you're just righting an historic wrong, or like, that's not about you at all. Like you're just doing it as a selfless act for the community. I don't know if there's a more selfless act in climbing than rebolting routes.
Yeah.
Which is why I've never done it. Truly, I've never fixed a route. Someone else. Oh, actually, I fixed one bolt on someone else's route once.
It's just fun. I think I've gotten like, I don't know, since I came with you to Russell, like I have this bug now, this like issue with like, I see rocks, I'm like driving, like, and there's a lot of rock here in Montana that I'm like constantly, all right, we know that there's an area there, but that next canyon, not many people have gone up there. And I'm like, I'm getting psyched. Once my leg is fixed, I might not be able to climb that much this summer, but I'm going to be definitely putting in some hardware.
You sent me a picture of something in your area now, something around Bozeman that looked the rock looked kind of rifle-ish, like blocky and kind of complex. Where is that?
That's the Hantavirus Cave.
Sounds great.
And
sounds like a great place to take a vacation.
Yeah.
The Hantavirus Cave.
The Hantavirus Cave is amazing. It's really like a local kind of gem. And in that little cave, there's a lot of climbs that are around it, but that cave kind of stays dry if it rains. So it's a great spot for the spring here. And it's basically 511A up to 514 with all these different link ups. And so you can like start on this route and then go into this one and hit kind of like I was talking about. You can do the crux of this one and then go into the crux of this one and make it harder. There's link up galore. And then one of my mentor, the route that I'm actually trying in there is one of my earliest mentors. I worked at this place called Johnny Carino's, and the chef there was this guy named Kyle Vasilopoulos. He's a lander guy now. And so I was like this 18-year-old, just learned about climbing, and Kyle would just do one middle finger mono pull-ups off of door jams and just show off to me.
Jeez.
And he was like, so now I've been going there. It's right near my house. And I realized this route, he's the one that put it up. So I'm like really psyched to go back and get that one down. But it's 20 minutes from my house. It's a great little training ground, kind of, like you said, rifle, lots of blocks, knee bars, cracks. It's cool.
Have you embraced the knee pads?
You know, the thing that I'm really psyched on Suburban. So my right knee bar is all right. You know, I've been working on it.
Yeah.
But now with this knee surgery, I don't know what's going to happen with
Ooh,
this right knee bar.
that puts some weird torque on your knee anyway. Like there's some weird torsional stuff going on when you're knee barring, especially like a hard knee bar where there's some weird stuff is happening.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be sticking with like face climbs and
Yeah.
not gym riding. But yeah, that place is really cool. I mean, that's like one of lots of little gems. There are like lots of little spots here that are, you know, right past that is my favorite spot's the Gallatin Canyon, which is more of a, I think more people know about that area. It's a, you know, there's probably 600 routes and there's big multi-pitch and it's all on incredible nice rock. So that's kind of, as soon as I can start climbing, I'm really excited to go there because there are lots of moderates too that are, you know, 5'8", climb 3 pitches and like do 2 rappels to get off.
Why do you think that I mean, Montana is a massive land area, right? Like there's a lot of Montana and there's a lot of mountains in Montana, right? Doesn't Conrad said that it means mountain in Spanish or
Yeah.
something? Yeah. So why do you think that Montana climbing has generally been under the radar?
Well, you know, I think one is that Bozeman has 50,000 people in the town here. And then we have all these resources and there's not a lot of people to really go get them. But I think the big thing is, and I know this is in that area that Jim Lawyer posted in the Beartooths. And that place is like kind of like hush hush, like don't talk about it. You know, you basically go there, you figure it out on your own, and you don't post anything. And so it's kind of that Farley kind of word of mouth. Let's keep it quiet because if we tell everyone, then we're going to have parking issues and we're going to have
Yeah.
all this stuff. So it's just kind of, you know, a lot of these areas are more word of mouth. There's like an online guide. There's a guide that we have, and it's just kind of passed around. Like my friend Eric has the Maiden Rocks guidebook, and it's just a PDF that, you know, maybe it will get published into a guidebook at some point, but really it just gets, you know, emailed around. Hey, you're going. Here's this thing. And so, you know, I think it's just more of that adventure too. I think Conrad was kind of talking about that. Let's keep these things where it's kind of, you go out and, you know, you can have still a little bit of adventure and get lost or not be quite sure what route you're on. You know, I was climbing actually at one of that Conrad's new area. It's not in a guidebook yet. And he told us, oh, it's mostly bolts. And then we got on a route and my buddy Frankie's like 20 feet run out. And I'm like, well, no, the bolt's 5 more feet above you, maybe more. And then we find out, I text him, oh yeah, that one, you need like this piece of gear.
After the fact. I mean, climbing used to be like that a lot where it was like, you'd see someone at the bar and they'd like grab a napkin and like write napkin beta, down for you. And you'd go out the next day. And it seems like that's a throwback compared to what climbing is now.
No, yeah, actually Conrad sent me his topo for that wall, and I'll roast him here a little bit. It was the worst topo I've ever seen. I was like, oh, this is perfect. Like, no clue where I'm at.
What made it bad? Just because there were no like defining features or anything?
Yeah, I'll just share it with you. It's on, like you said, a napkin. It's on a piece of envelope.
Yeah.
When it's, you know, it just says the name and maybe an arrow. It doesn't, you know, have, oh, there's 5 bolts. You know, you kind of have to figure it out.
That's such the classic like guidebook trap that you could fall into when you're like, this climb is right of climb A, which is right of climb B, which is right of climb C. And there's no like anchor climb. So you're just in this like Kafka-esque logic loop that you like, there's no place where you're able to define reality and you just keep making assumptions based on that. So like, yeah, that's definitely a thing.
Yeah, it makes it fun. You know?
Do you think now in an era where there are scores more climbers than there used to be that we have an obligation to like more dutifully report climbing areas and routes that we do?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like we don't want to be gatekeeping, right? You don't want to be holding these back so that, you know, and I think, again, this is kind of like, I guess my point of view would be, this is kind of like the retrobolting routes, right? There's some that, right, should just be left as a mental challenge, and kind of like Farley, right? It's kind of the ethnic now is that thing is just there. You can go, but you're not going to publish on it, and you're going to have to go to learn. And I think we should have those areas. We should have the Beartooths, which, if you want to go in there and climb that route he's talking about, you have to hike in there the however many miles it is, and have that experience. And so I think it is our responsibility, though, is to like, let's develop more areas that are just the easy accessible, easy to kind of develop, make them so that they're not erode, all these things sustainable, and that they have safe and like easy lower offs. And like, I think that's, we're obligated to do that, or should try.
I definitely agree with you. And I think having done the majority of my developing in New England, if we're not getting people climbing our routes, they just get reclaimed by the forest. In order to justify like putting the time and the energy and the money into developing something, you need to have people climb it, because then it's sort of all for naught. Like what, it's just like bolts sticking out of dirt, like, and vegetation. Like that's like, what is that?
Yeah, I feel like the ones, especially like Y Crag and that new crags that you're near the parking lot, like those, if you leave those for, I don't know, what, 2 years, 3 years?
Yeah, just like Forest Garden, just the one that's like lowest on the hill at Merriam, like even with climbers, it gets mossy and you have to like maintain it basically. Like the forest always wins in New Hampshire. The forest always wins.
How is the parking lot fundraising going?
It's going great. Yeah, that's a great segue to anyone who's listening can go to centralnewhampshireclimbers.com and donate to help us build the parking lot. But we're like 80% to our fundraising goal. And that's the funny thing about this access stuff is like each time I'm like, this is a hurdle that we will not clear, and we're gonna be done. Like this is as far as we can go. Like nobody's gonna sell us this land. Like they're not gonna sell us the land, and then they sell us the land, and it's like, well, it's not gonna appraise for what it's supposed to appraise for, and then it appraises for less, and we're like, okay, well, we're going to renegotiate for less. They're never going to say yes. And then they say yes. And then they're like, well, we need to get a variance. And, oh, it's so hard to get a variance. And like, we probably won't get it. And then we get the variance. And like, now it's like, we're raising money and it's like, it's a lot of money, but now we're like really close to the goal. So we just keep like shockingly clearing these hurdles. And like, we're on our way to clearing the next one too.
Nice. Yeah, I need to, I haven't donated, but I'm going to be doing that soon.
We accept all donations in any denomination, even your weird Montana money. Like we'll accept that too.
Perfect.
Yeah, we'll put a link in the show notes, obviously, for where you can donate. Any amount is helpful, and it's about sustainable use for a climbing area that we love. And I mean, I think we have an obligation as climbers to support the LCOs and maintaining access and stewardship to our climbing areas. So whether it's Merriam Woods or some random cliff in Montana nobody's ever heard about, like it's important to support that development.
Yeah.
So Ethan, you've been on Patreon, but you've not been on the main stage, as it were. So I don't think I got to ask you the most important question, which is, are you gates in or gates out?
You're going to like this answer. I'm gates in, and I've always have been. And I think I agree. It's the wrist.
It's the wrist. Yes.
I don't see how people don't get that you have to undo it. And there is a twist of the wrist. But what I do like is when I am climbing multi-pitch and I'm following, I do like to rack gates out, because I like grab it sometimes, and you might get mad at me. Like sometimes if it's a hard pitch, they might be in and out on the way up.
What? There's no standard? There's just willy-nilly?
When I'm following, let's say it's a hard trad pitch and you're like, a lot of times I actually do gates out, because I like take the gear and I don't know why, it just works that way. But I'm always, if I'm leading and I have draws on my rack, it's always gates in.
The one thing that when you're explaining this, I'm just picturing it, and I can't believe I haven't used this as an argument for gates in, but like ice tool clippers, and if you're doing kind of the same for clipping nuts onto your harness, you always have the gates out, but with the nose of the carabiner down, which is effectively gates in, because you flip that carabiner over, that's gates in. Like ice clippers are gates in.
That's a good point.
So every ice climber is gates in as long as they have ice clippers on.
But yeah, you put your ice tool on. Like, I don't know if you've ever done a route where you have to, like, mid-route, like, put the tool on. You always want to do that. That's kind of the same feeling when I'm, like, pulling the gear out of the wall. I use it and I clip it, generally gates out. But then when I get to it's not efficient because I get to the belay, I have to switch
Yeah, and when you're following a hard pitch, sometimes I don't even unclip the gear from the rope. I'll just pull it out of pull it out of the rock and let it hang on the rope, just because it's a big shit show when you get to the belay. Ethan, thanks so much for being on the pod. Like, I hope that your convalescence goes smoothly and that you come back to the rock stronger with like fingers of steel.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of First Ascent Podcast. If you liked what you heard, please rate and review us on your podcast platform. This is what keeps us going. And if you want more content, we have a Patreon page. You can search First Ascent Pod on Patreon. And finally, you can follow us on Instagram at First Ascent Pod, or my personal Instagram at JAYKNOWER. Thanks so much, and keep sending.